Hey, Ivan here. Product review time. We're going to be talking about the Mad River Outfitters furled monofilament Tenkara line. I do a ton of Tenkara fishing, love Tenkara fishing. My fishing is mostly ponds, rivers, creeks, streams, northern Illinois, mostly bluegill, small, largemouth bass, small meaning no more than about to a foot tops. So you get some idea of what I'm fishing for and what I am catching. I was in the store in Columbus, Ohio over Mad River Outfitters, and I picked up this, caught my attention, Tenkara line, made in the USA for Mad River Outfitters. It implies they don't make it themselves, but somebody, an outsider, makes it for them. Handmade, traditionally furled monofilament line. This one, they have both mono and thread, which I assume is like a nylon thread. And this one is a 10-footer. I've kind of found that 10 feet is really a great Tenkara length for me through trial and error. And I've tried a lot of lines. Maybe we'll see some other reviews for some other lines, but this one caught my attention. I've got it here on a wooden spool. It's one of the Tenkara Rodco spools. I kind of like these. They're lightweight, but they're large enough to wind really, really nice. So I do use these. But the orange color caught my attention, and I fished it a bunch, and I really, really like this line. And I'll tell you a little bit about what I liked about it and why, but let's talk about what's going on with the line itself. I fish Tenkara rods at 12, 10, 8, and 5.5 feet. So I've got a few rods at a few lengths, and really I've optimized at about that 10-foot length. Now I normally put on about 36 inches of 4X tippet. The 4X is my preferred tippet weight for all of what I'm doing. Obviously I'm catching fish that I could go with lighter tippet and not run the risk of breaking, snapping the tippet, but for me, the 4X tippet is the optimum in terms of line strength and knot tie ability, my ability to work with it and handle it without it getting too fine and crazy. Really, from 4 to 5, I really don't like 5 as much as I really prefer 4. So that's fairly standard for me. And I'm usually fishing mono tippet, occasionally fluoro, but usually just mono. The lines are mono, the tippet is mono. And I'm putting it on those variety of lengths, but I got about 3 feet. So a 10-foot line turns into about 13 feet of line, a little longer than my 12. And in a moment, we'll talk about why I can cast this so well, even down to a 5.5 foot, fairly stiff Tenkara rod. Because my 5.5er, no one would accuse it of being super whippy or super flexible, unlike my 8. My 8's got a lot of really nice flex to it. My 10 is very much a medium, and my 12 is just a superb rod. But anyways, this is the Mad River Outfitters furled mono 10-foot Tenkara line. We're going to start at the back end because I'm going to unwind here. We've got a anchor line tied on the back end of this. It is hitched to the loop in the Tenkara line. I'm not sure what this is, but it's a nice heavy material. It feels like maybe it's fly line backing of some kind, but it's got a pretty large loop in it for hitching to the Lillian, and then it's got a knot and a gap and a knot. So you've got a nice tail on there to pull through. One of the things I will point out that I like, the fact that this loop is large. Normally, when I hand tie or create some of my lines and I haven't made these large enough, when I go to loop it over to hitch it to the Lillian, they tend to get snagged on the loop right about there. This one doesn't. This one just slides past really well, or doesn't even incorporate the loop end on the line itself in a way that catches or snags it up. So I like having that little extra bit of length there. By the time it's hooked in, is that another 2.5, 3 inches of length on my line? Well, sure, maybe it is, but I'm not going to nitty gritty it too much like that. If you take a look at it up close, it is a furled line, and it is billed as tapered. I asked when I was purchasing it, hey, is that line tapered? And the answer is yes. It almost seems like it is a fiber of some kind with then like a clear coating over it, as opposed to being like regular mono fishing line, and that very well may be what this is. Like it is coated or dipped in some way. I don't even know, but it is consistent in length, and then there comes a point where then it feels, as it was billed, that it is tapered, and that point is right about there. So let's just get a feel for how far in that is. I'm going to say 1, 2. Okay, that's 2.5. 2.5 is 5, and another 18.5 feet is 6.5 of the 10 feet is the thicker or heavier, and then 1, 2.5. That's probably about 2.5 feet. So 6.5, 7.5, 8.5, 9-ish. My measurements are pretty close and accurate. I'm just kind of shotgunning it, but that taper happens about, I would say 2.5 feet up from the tippet ring. There is, of course, a tippet ring on the end there. And then, as I said, I've got 3 feet of tippet on this particular one. And on the end, I've got a little size 12 bully bluegill spider tied on the end of that. Because again, panfish, lots of bluegill that I go after. Real nice castability on this line. It is a little heavier if you're used to regular tapered furled lines that are nylon or thread based, if you will. It's got a little more weight to it, and it picks up weight. If you've thrown furled lines, casted furled lines, you do know that when they get wet, they absorb some moisture or they pick up some water and they develop some additional weight. I find this not to be a bad thing. I think you get a little greater castability with a little bit of weight and a little greater control with a little bit of weight. I'm throwing small flies, I'm throwing light flies, I'm not throwing big bass flies. So that line that gets a little bit heavier with moisture really gives me some control. I'm able to easily cast the full distance of the line and tippet and gently place or drop the fly strategically with a bit of accuracy. I'll take partial credit for that based on skill, and I'll lay the rest of the credit for that on what I find to be a really eminently usable and castable line at all those rod lengths that I described. So this thing was $16.95. And again, one of the cool things I love so much about Tenkara is it's just an inexpensive way to fish. Now, I know some of you out there have seen some Tenkara rods that are super pricey. I've got rods from Dragon Tail. I've got a rod from Tenkara Rod Co., 2 of those. I've got that short one I described. That's a tiny Tenkara. And I don't have a Tenkara USA just yet. There's one that I'm kind of lusting after. And I've seen some, pretty pricey Japanese ones, and I've also seen some of the Chinese stuff online. I haven't picked one of those up yet as a opportunity to do a little research and to try it, but been really, really happy with the things I have. As I mentioned, my 8 is super flexible. My 10 is what I would describe as normal. My 12 is very normal, but that tiny 10, original tiny 10 at about 5.5 feet is a very, very stiff rod, and it is sometimes a real challenge to cast light and shorter lines on that rod. This 10-foot furled mono line with a little water on it is eminently castable with a short, stiff rod. So if you're into the pack rod thing, throw it in a bag, take it with you. If you're casting shorter Tenkara rods, smaller streams, and you want some control, great choice. So Mad River Outfitters Tenkara line, mono furled 10-foot. That's my impressions of it. Go out and try one. Pick one up online. If when I can, I have a link to one, I will include it in this video. You can go check it out there. Hey, tight lines, happy casting, and get out there. Do some Tenkara and experiment with some products. More info at another time on some of the other things I'm enjoying using and experiencing on the water. Have a great day.